All right, we're back. It's Wednesday, June 24th, around 2 p.m. June 24th, already 1 month gone in the summer. I had to delete my first introduction because I was talking about still being stuck in New Jersey. I don't feel like talking about this anymore. But I do plan to move to the West Coast at the end of July, whether or not I get a job or not. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be interesting. I have it on my calendar right now on June 30th, get tattoos June 31st or July 31st next month. Leave for the West Coast, take a train or bus, and hopefully I can continue doing this when I get out there. Um, Today is going to be an interesting talk because I'm sure I have a lot of stuff in my head right now to get out. Um, I'm kind of spacing these talks out more because I want to actually have something to talk about now, not just my own thoughts and nonsense. So I went to Oliver Sacks, who I really enjoy listening to. His voice is very, I don't know, calming to me for some reason. He wrote a book called Musicophilia, Musicophilia. I'll link it somewhere. If you don't know Oliver Sacks, he was like a neurologist in the UK, and he worked with a lot of um, Alzheimer's, dementia patients like that. In this book, he kind of documents how music therapy works and some of the weirdness involved with brain injuries, where people can lose their language, but they develop this savant type of musical ability, and it's really interesting. Lately, for the last week, as I prepare to move to a new chapter of my life on the West Coast, I'm not sure where yet. I've been just working out, going up and down the driveway, walking around in circles and lifting bricks and doing other calisthenics, if that's what it's called, aerobics, with a broomstick. But it's actually pretty good. I can feel muscles that I haven't felt in a while. And eventually I could start doing better stuff. But you got to walk first. It's been a while since I exercised, but I know I get addicted to it, so it's a good thing. But as I was doing that, to distract myself from the exercise, because it's not easy when you first start, I was doing chanting, and I might share some of these. It was a weird thing. These melodies popped in my head, and I would just go around the driveway chanting stuff. And I think some of them are actually pretty decent. So I was like, all right, we're gonna make a new album. I'm gonna call it The Curse of the 44. And it was a title that I had for a short story that I never wrote yet. And I'm gonna just keep chanting and see what comes out. When I woke up this morning, I had one of those moments again where I had this melody in my head, so I kind of transformed it into chanting, like tribal rhythms. I'll share a couple of them just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Um, just almost like yodeling sometimes. It's weird. So I'm just going up and down the driveway, chanting and stomping my feet like a tribal dance. And I think it's actually could be a cool new Richard Simmons sweating to the oldies instead of that shit. Do like tribal rhythms, tribal beats, and just get real funky with it. Like you're at one of those ritual ceremonies in some Amazon forest somewhere. So that's my routine right now in between reading this book and reading other stuff. And just trying to keep my head focused on what I want to do with my life, which is very simple: work, and then work on my art with the money I earn from working, and eventually buy land and do all that I talk about over and over again. So that's all my focus is, and I call it my deal with God or the universe, whatever, that every 2 weeks I'll donate blood or platelets, because that's just the one thing I can do easily. I feel like I could give blood every whatever it is, every 60 some days maybe, and then donate platelets every 2 weeks because it's a different thing that you can recover from pretty quickly. So that's my deal with God, the universe, whatever, to get me on that path where I can actually get my music made. And it's going to be rough in the beginning as I get this routine going, but I'm easily adjustable once I have a routine and I know I have food and shelter. I'm pretty low maintenance. But today, if I didn't say, yeah, it's going to be an evolution of a song. I think this might be number 9, if I remember correctly. Evolution of a song, if you don't know, this is the first time you heard my nasally voice. Evolution of a song is I take one of my songs that I've written over the last 20 years. This one came maybe, yeah, it is number 8. This one is called Some Forge Higher. It's the closing song off my album Dream of Rapture, which was based on a dream I had of this weird cyclops talking to me in a bar and telling me the world was going to end, and then the oceans emptied and all these creatures came out from the ocean and had invaded the beach like this army of cyclops. It was an interesting dream to say the least. I used that in a couple screenplays and other ideas of creative writing. Some Forge Higher is the name of this song that I'll be discussing later. It's a pretty upbeat song, which is weird for that album because, as far as I remember, it's mostly spoken word stuff, kind of experimental music, even whatever that means for me, because I don't really know what's not experimental. Everything's experimental at this point. But this is from an album called Dream of Rapture. It's in my book. Again, I released the book 2 years ago with probably 450 songs or so, 54 concept albums of all the songs I've written throughout my life. But before I get to that, I'm going to speak about Oliver Sacks and his book. All I really did was read through the book. When I do a talk like this, I did it with Going Tribal. I talked about Among the Thugs by Bill Buford. I did it with another book, John Luther Adams, when I talked about that. Whatever that was, I forget now. So I just highlight passages and I kind of go back to my memory banks and see what I was thinking about when I was reading these things. So that's my routine right now. It's a little bit different because getting back to physical stuff after a while not doing anything physical really, after losing the Amazon job because it was only seasonal, I didn't really keep up with it through the winter completely. Walking and doing other stuff because I really just want to leave New Jersey. I don't think I was depressed to say that's why I wasn't doing physical stuff, but it's more frustration because I don't know why I haven't gotten a job yet. But I'm not going to linger on this because I talk about it all day while I'm working out, why I'm frustrated right now. I don't think people really want to listen to me, so I'm not going to talk about it in this format. But it does help me get angry when I'm working out, and being angry is good. It'll get the blood pumping a little bit extra, give you some extra juice when you're doing stuff. All right, so let's go into this book so this doesn't turn into like a 4-hour talk. I really don't want it to be more than 2 hours today. So this is Evolution of a Song, number 8. And the song I'll be discussing after going through Oliver Sacks' book is called Some Forge Higher. I selected that book because Radiation Highway was the last talk I had, and that dealt with a lot of dark shit. So when I was going through my book, I was like, let me find a song that's kind of upbeat and happy, even though this album derived from a apocalyptic dream I had, or a nightmare. But it was more comedic. Like I was in a bar with a cyclops, and this cyclops is just drinking and he's motions that come for me to come over, sit next to him, and then he's telling me the world's going to end, some prophecy. And then I look out the window in the dream, and the oceans are just like evaporating in the air. And at the bottom of the ocean, all these weird monsters and creatures are marching to take back the planet. That's the dream I had. I don't know. I must have watched some Marvel movie or some shit before I fell asleep that night. But I decided to write an entire concept album about that because it stayed with me for a while. I don't do that often. I know people aren't interested in dreams, but I figured it was kind of interesting enough to create an entire album of 12 songs. And this was a different album because each song title tells the story. I'll go into that later, but before I get too distracted with my ramble, yeah, Oliver Sacks is pretty awesome. Listen to his TED Talk. You can find a lot of podcasts. That's what I did this morning when I first started working out this morning. Look up Musicophilia on whatever service you use, and you'll find plenty of material. He was pretty well known and very interesting to listen to. He had his own problems too that he discusses in the book, physical and some mental hallucinations and tinnitus, which I've had before. And sometimes it creeps up, but now I just kind of don't even realize it's happening. The tinnitus or tinnitus, however you pronounce it. Something I had that stayed with me years ago. It was more annoying, I guess. All right, what was I gonna do again? I don't know, maybe I'm getting dementia too now. This book is a lot about dementia and Alzheimer's and other types of I don't know what the mental disorders, I don't know what the politically correct term is, like for Tourette's and Asperger's. I never knew what the difference was between both those two uh, medical terms. See, I'm even afraid to call them a medical disorder because I don't know what they really are. Politically correct language. And if you really want to get involved in this, if you're interested in what I'm going to share in this Oliver Sacks book, you can watch it on YouTube called Musical Minds. Just search Nova Musical Minds. I think it's no copyright issue. I think it's from the Nova channel, maybe. But I did find it on YouTube. It's about an hour long. It shows 4 people. One of them was a blind man who could play a hell of a piano. He was like a savant. Another guy was a drummer with Tourette's syndrome, and the only way he could feel like his tics were in control was when he was drumming, which kind of makes sense to me. I don't know. And there were some other stories in there too about he talks about in this chapter a lot of famous musicians who are blind. You know, of course, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder. But then you go into the blues. There's been so many blues musicians. I feel like there's so many blind Willie. I don't know the names, but I don't know why. That's kind of odd. But all right, let's get into the book before I really ramble too much. This is going to take a little while because this was a 400-page book on my Kindle, and it took me about maybe 3 days to get through all of it. I just finished it before I started this talk. It was pretty easy to get through. I'd recommend it. Musicophilia, if you're interested in the brain and how that affects people making music, the creative regions of the brain. And he talks about, this will be the first quote I share from early on in this book. On the other hand, musical imagery may become excessive and uncontrollable, leading to incessant repetition of catchy tunes or even musical hallucinations. So there is a positive side throughout most of this book of helping people with music therapy. When I did think I was going to become a nurse, but I just couldn't do it. It wasn't for me. I remember reading about some kind of program where they would go to nursing homes and play music for the residents. And it was a way to just I don't know, increase their memory or group participation. People who are more lethargic or maybe depressed or maybe just don't want to get out of bed. I think music is a big part of that. You might know Oliver Sacks from the Robin Williams movie Awakenings with Robert De Niro. I saw that as a kid. I don't really remember it too well, but I think that's based on his book or maybe something else he did. So there's a lot of weird stuff about music. He gets into synesthesia. Some musicians see music as color, which I learned about a couple years ago. That doesn't work for me. I never experienced anything like that. Never had hallucinations with music. Um, what I do have is sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, and he talks about that. I think that's fairly common though. Maybe I heard something earlier that day or week, and it just stayed in my subconscious. So I wake up and I just hear some melody in my head. Like this morning, I had an actual chanting that I don't remember now. But the good thing with my phone is that I can record it right away. Yeah, yeah. So they talk about his movie Awakenings. I'm not going to say the page numbers because, like I said before, I'm reading on my Kindle and I don't know what other people are looking at if they want to look these things up. Here's another quote. And then, on the heels of this sudden desire for piano music, Cicoria started to hear music in his head. The first time, he said, it was in a dream. I was in a tux on stage. I was playing something I had written. I woke up startled and the music was still in my head. I jumped out of bed, started trying to write down as much of it as I could remember, but I hardly knew how to notate what I heard. I think this was one of his, I'm not sure. There was a lot of different people he talked about, but I think this guy was in the actual documentary on Nova Musical Minds, where he's a orthopedic surgeon, and then he got struck by lightning, and after that he just gained this crazy appreciation for piano music, and he actually became like a composer. I think it was called the Lightning Requiem or something like that. Again, you could look this stuff up if it's interesting to you. His name is Cicoria, Cicoria. He calls him Dr. Cicoria. I don't know if he gives his first name here. Tony Cicoria. I think he was American. This is coming from another quote from him. It's like a frequency, a radio band. If I open myself up, it comes. I want to say it comes from heaven, as Mozart said. So that made me think of The Muse in Stephen Pressfield's book, when he talks about what is the muse, what is inspiration, and he goes really in depth about that and how you have to respect the muse. That kind of reminded me of that. Like, what is the muse? Why did this guy get struck by lightning? And all of a sudden, maybe he was a casual music fan, and then he's like every waking moment where he wasn't working as a doctor, he had to make music. He was saying he woke up at 4 a.m, he would practice piano 2 hours a day and then go to work for 12, 14 hours as a doctor and then come back and do the same thing. And he was just addicted to it, like it took over his life. At the time of his lightning strike, Dr. Cicoria had both a near-death experience and an out-of-body experience. Many supernatural or mystical explanations have arisen to explain out-of-body experiences, but they have also been a topic of neurological investigation for a century or more. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I've watched shows on Netflix like AI, or no, it wasn't AI. What was it called? The OA or something. And it kind of dealt with parallel universes and near-death experiences. Like this one guy was trying to bring it on by doing it to people, like as a science experiment. He wanted to see where it would lead them. And I think it was like some parallel universe thing. I watched this like a decade ago, but it was pretty interesting. The issue of parallel universes is kind of popular in a lot of media right now. But near death experiences, I think they're just called NDEs, right? To make it easier to say. I feel like I've had some in my life. I talked about during Radiation Highway. I don't know if that's what led me to do all this, but I know even though I was somewhat determined to create music for most of my life since high school, I never became manic about it until 2020 when all the shit went crazy in my life. So who knows, man? I don't know how any of this stuff works inside the brain. I don't know how the brain works. Like, this was a difficult book for me because I don't understand a lot of these terms that a neurologist would just think is basic science or whatever. All right, let's talk about another one of his correspondents, Grace M. She described the rather sudden onset of her own musicality at the age of 55. Shortly after returning from a vacation in Israel and Jordan, she started to hear song fragments in her head. She tried to record them by drawing lines on paper. She did not know formal music notation. When this did not work, she bought a tape recorder and sang into it. Now, 3 years later, she has recorded more than 3,300 fragments, and arising from these, about 4 complete songs a month. So that's very inspiring for me. I got this down. I'm very confident that, well, I'm never going to say that because you're tempting the fates, right? The ability that I had to write over 600 songs so far, because I'm not going to say I'm done completely, but I really want to make them. That's a different experience, but I have the same methodology whenever I think of a short thing, like I just said, a melody or a chant. I could record it in my phone and save it for future use, whatever it becomes. That's how I look at it. I'm not able to make music right now in the general way that people think about music. I can't record a guitar and drums and horns and strings. I can't do that outside of my head, but inside my brain, I can do that, and it gives me that comfort and purpose. I think it's more of a purpose. If I never had this art and stuff in my life, I would be a completely different person. Somebody in that episode said that the guy with Tourette's, who's really amazing drummer, I think when he was a kid, he was learning about his Tourette's, and it would make him violent at his siblings and parents and maybe kids at school. But he found the outlet of drums, and that became his guiding light, his salvation. It's pretty interesting, very inspiring stuff. I'd recommend it if you can find it. Musical Minds, based on this book. It's like an hour documentary that Nova made. All right, continuing. She does not believe she has a mission to share or spread her music. If anything, she is rather reticent about it. I am not a performer or self-promoter by nature, and find this all a bit embarrassing, she wrote. So that's just making music for the love of making music. She's not trying to make money or get a record deal. That's how I was for most of my life until Substack. Substack, I was like, all right, I'm going to share everything I've ever done. And it's like playing the lottery. One of these things has to hit eventually. If people pay attention to it one day, maybe something will hit. But now I'm kind of resigned. I'm different than I was a year ago when I got evicted, and I was like, I'm going to get this Kickstarter to work because I deserve this opportunity. I still feel that way, but now I'm in reality where I have to do it myself. So I have to get a job and support myself while I make this art. And that's my plan right now. Now, here's another patient that he worked with, I believe. With the regrowth of his tumor, he has had repeated seizures in which he does not lose consciousness, but as he wrote to me, music explodes in my head for about 2 minutes. I love music. I've made my career around it. So it seems a bit ironic that music has also become my tormentor. Yeah, that's a sad thing. Um, yeah, that's music explodes in my head for about 2 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's just like almost like a tick. I was just interesting to me, like somebody who is a musician, imagine that happening to you. Connected to that, he developed a veritable phobia, a horror of music, and this is described in a pamphlet he titled Fear of Music. This was somebody else. Critchley, McDonald Critchley. I think I just highlighted that because of Talking Heads. They have an album called Fear of Music, and that's supposedly a real thing. I've never met anyone like that, who they'll hear music in a church and they have to leave. I think that was one of the examples in this book. Or, well, that's more the hallucinations. And another person believed they were hearing church music, but it was all in their head. Like there are musical hallucinations like that, which I never knew existed. When I think hallucinations, because I feel like I've had some, they were not really auditory. It was more visual or just mentally exhaustive states of mind where your mind plays tricks on you. I'm not going to read everything I highlighted because this might take too long. The problem is he talks about so many different people, and I didn't highlight their names. So I'm just going to go through this and talk about why I highlighted these phrases or sentences. Many composers, indeed, do not compose initially or entirely at an instrument, but in their minds. Again, that's everything I'm doing right now. I have to do that. I don't have any other way to compose music. But I think that's normal. Even if I had that, I'd still be a lone wolf composer. A lone wolf composer, just composing stuff throughout the day and throughout the night. I wrote a gospel album maybe in October, November. The first time I donated blood in October at the Red Cross, some firehouse. And I felt like I got this urge of inspiration after that, where I saw those people later and I was like, yeah, if I ever make this album, I'm going to include, I forget their names now, but maybe I could get their names later. Because I feel like it was an inspiring thing. You donate blood and you get inspiration in return. That's like the gift. So I'll take that every time. That's not why I'm doing it, but hey, I'm not gonna take that for granted if I can give blood and get inspired, because that really is true. I wrote an entire album like as soon as or I had a couple songs at least, as soon as I donated blood the first time. It was a really weird experience. I don't know, man. All right, let's continue. We are on much richer, much more mysterious terrain when we consider tunes or musical fragments we have perhaps not heard or thought of in decades, that suddenly play in the mind for no apparent reason. No recent exposure, no repetition can explain such tunes, and it is almost impossible to avoid asking oneself why this tune at this particular moment, what put it into my mind. Sometimes the reason or association is obvious, or seems so. Why is this tune in my head at this moment? What put it in my mind? It's a George Costanza, Master of the House. That was always a memorable Seinfeld episode. Costanza, he can't get that song out of his head. And I think some composer like went nuts. Master of the House. I don't even know what that song is, from some musical or something. All right. There's different opinions about stuff like that. I want to fly through a lot of this because it's hard for me to discuss these things. I'm being honest. Anything to do with neural processes. I read Carl Sagan, Dragons of Eden, or something like that, about how the brain works in relation to a reptilian brain and stuff like that. I can't really remember too much about it. But books like that with more scientific terminology are very problematic for me because I have to like pause and read things like 3 times. But this was an interesting quote. If we look at how the brain generates creativity, we will see that it is not a rational process at all. Creativity is not born out of reasoning. So I don't know what to make of that. There is a mathematics, and I think he gets into that. There is a technical nature of music. You can divide it, you can count it, and it's a way to help people with like OCD, I think, and other patients with mental issues that might cause them pain. Maybe they had a stroke. I think that was a common occurrence. A stroke or coming out of a coma, or the one guy, the crazy story was being struck by lightning, and all of a sudden he like gets a superpower. Like instead of becoming Spider-Man, he becomes like the next Mozart. I'm not saying he was. I don't know the guy, but I don't know. I never listened to his music, although they played a clip of his piano playing because he does perform, I guess, on that documentary I was talking about. All right, continuing. I do have fragments of poetry and sudden phrases darting into my mind, but with nothing like the richness and range of my spontaneous musical imagery. Perhaps it is not just the nervous system, but music itself that has something very peculiar about it. Its beat, its melodic contours, so different from those of speech, and its peculiarly direct connection to the emotions. So he gets into this a lot about the difference between language and music. And I thought it was interesting because music is like a language. Maybe that's why there's so many problems with miscommunication. Maybe we're supposed to communicate by music and not our stupid languages. I don't know. That doesn't really make any sense because how are you going to do that? I know that, but who knows what it's going to be in the future? It's just going to be all telepathy or some shit. And he does mention Arthur C. Clarke. I haven't had a chance to read the book yet. Childhood's End, I think it's called. It's about overlords coming to Earth and kind of observing music and its effects on people. Now this is he opened chapter 5 about brainworms. I have a Substack post about earworms, same thing. Earworms, he calls them brainworms. Just music that stays in your head for continuous, almost like the George Costanza story I just talked about. This is from Carole King. Music is playing inside my head over and over and over again. There's no end. Almost like a torture. But I guess a lot of musicians that would have similar experiences. Again, I don't consider myself a musician because I don't perform anything. I'm like that woman who was too shy, reticent to share anything. But I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to at least record stuff. I might not be able to perform things live, but at least I could get music out there and see what people think of it. Hence the term earworms, though one might be inclined to call them brainworms instead. One news magazine in 1987 defined them, half facetiously, as cognitively infectious musical agents. That's pretty George Carlin language, cognitively infectious musical agents. No, it's just an earworm, man. You don't got to get all complicated. And he talked about the show Married with Children, the love and marriage, love and marriage. It was a funny story he told. Also on the podcast, he told the same story. One of his patients had that song in his head, always like love and marriage, love and marriage. And then when he finally got rid of it, but then when he was repeating the story to him, then it got stuck in his head again. So I don't think that was the intent of therapy, but you know, things are going to happen. All right, what am I talking about here? I have lately been enjoying mental replays of Beethoven's third and fourth piano concertos as recorded by Leon Flesher in the 1960s. These replays tend to last 10 or 15 minutes and to consist of entire movements. They come, unbidden but always welcome, 2 or 3 times a day. But on one very tense and insomniac night, they change character so that I only heard a single rapid run on the piano, lasting 10 or 15 seconds and repeated hundreds of times. This is what I'm talking about. I never knew people had stuff like this. I would love to speak with people who've experienced stuff like this, like looping hallucinations almost inside your head on the loop. Something that you enjoy, but then it becomes almost like a torture. You have to kind of meditate to get rid of your musical looping inside your head. All right, let me keep going because this is going to take a while. I tried to be fair to myself, and I know I don't feel like talking only about this book, even though it is good. I'd recommend buying it. There's a bunch of Oliver Sacks that I do want to read later. The man who mistook his wife for a hat. I think that's his most famous one. Maybe that was the one based on awakenings and hallucinations. He's got other ones that seem pretty interesting. And he's not talking like crazy language, like crazy complicated, even though it is about brain chemistry and brain readings. They can show like what's the difference between listening to music and imagining music in your head. How does the brain respond? And it's all like the frontal lobe, I think, was the conclusion. Everything is formed in your frontal lobe in terms of creative music. All right, let's continue. They do not speak of themselves imagining the music, but of some strange autonomous mechanism set off in the brain. They speak of tapes, circuits, radios, or recordings in their brains. One of my correspondents called it his intracranial jukebox. I think a lot of people have that. Radiohead. Classical music doesn't really play in my head too much because I don't listen to it as much, so it never becomes an earworm for me. But other songs, like I'll talk about later. Last night I had Real Big Fish in my head. I haven't listened to a Real Big Fish song in probably 10 years. I don't remember, but I just got this horn part in my head. It just kept repeating. It's probably because I'm reading this book, so I'm thinking about it. Dun, 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 dun. I forget how it goes now. But it's weird that these melodies can sound in my head, but then I can't like reproduce them with my vocalization sometimes. Sometimes I can. Sometimes I'm totally like out of sync with what I'm trying to do in my head. But I think I've gotten better at least as I try to mumble melodies into my phone. He cries, "Take it out of my head, take it away." This reminded me of a story that Robert Jourdain relates about Tchaikovsky as a child, who was reportedly once found weeping in bed, saying, "This music, it is here in my head, save me from it." Like really dramatic. I never heard this before. I like Tchaikovsky. I don't know. I never heard this story before, but maybe he talks about Berlioz later too. I just read today, one of the later chapters. Strokes, transient ischemic attacks, and cerebral aneurysms or malformations can all lead to musical hallucinations, but these tend to die down with the subsiding or treatment of the pathology, whereas the majority of musical hallucinations are very persistent, though they may fade a little over the years. Again, I never knew this stuff existed, so I was very intrigued by people experiencing that. I knew synesthesia was a thing. I've heard other people talk about that. Maybe that's not as annoying as a looped hallucination that won't stop inside your head, or hearing things that aren't even there. Because usually, even back then, when the study of hallucinations were a thing, I don't think it was a found science. I think hallucinations were usually always about visual hallucinations. A decade after she wrote to me, I met with Mrs. B, and I asked her whether, after so many years, her hallucinated music had become important in her life, in either a positive or a negative way. If it went away, I asked, would you be pleased or would you miss it? Miss it, she answered at once. I would miss the music. You see, it is now a part of me. So, yeah, that's another way to look at it. It is kind of a gift, even though maybe it could drive people crazy too. But if you're struggling from a stroke, you can't speak, but for some reason you can play amazing music, or the music soothes you and kind of heal your brain symmetry, whatever you want to call it. There is a healing power of music. I do believe that. I'm not a hippy dippy dude so much. I'm pretty liberal, but I'm not a hippy dippy. Last night I was listening to 528 hertz frequency healing music on YouTube because I don't know, I just needed it. Around 1 a.m. I was like, all right, I'm just going to listen to this, and eventually I fell asleep to that. Yeah, I think it's known as the miracle tone. 528 hertz is that frequency. Check it out on YouTube. You could go down a rabbit hole of different frequencies and stuff. I've been living at the edge, but a very special edge, the border between the brain and the mind. From here, the vistas are wide in several directions. This is from Wrangle. What's his first name? I forget now. I'm going to have this problem because I didn't highlight the people's names. Just Dr. Wrangle. Go look him up. Dr. Wrangle. Dr. Acula. All right, let's continue. Why did I highlight that? The border between the brain and the mind sounded pretty interesting because what is the brain? What is the mind? What is consciousness? It takes me down those weird semantic explorations or whatever that I don't really understand, but I know other people speak about it, consciousness, and no one can really explain it in terms of like real hard science. So it's something, one of those mysteries that I go back to. When you talk about free will and stuff. All right, I'm gonna skip some of these because it's gonna take too long. Even Tchaikovsky was keenly aware that his great fertility in melody was not matched by a comparable grasp of musical structure, but he had no desire to be a great architectonic composer like Beethoven. He was perfectly happy to be a great melodic one. So yeah, know yourself. I keep saying that because I heard somebody else say that recently. Know thyself. I forget what I was on a Phillies broadcast months ago or last month. Speaking of David Wells, and once he gained his weight back, he was able to pitch like himself again. So know thyself. And there's so much music to create. I was going to mention that guy later, the one guy who had schizophrenia. Is it Wesley Willis? I always forget his name now. Wesley. I'll mention him now so I don't forget to, because I tend to do that. Yeah, Wesley Willis. He was in Chicago. Passed away in 2003 in Skokie. Wesley Lawrence Willis. He's a musician and visual artist. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1989, and he made his own type of music, man. If Oliver Sacks could have interviewed him, I wish they would have connected because it would have fit into this book perfectly, I'm sure. I don't know a lot about this guy's life. I just learned of him maybe 6 months ago from the Rock and Roll McDonald song. And then I learned more about him, and I haven't dug too deeply, but it's pretty interesting. His lyrics are actually really interesting because you're never going to hear anything like Wesley Willis. It's why Jello Biafra, I think, gave him a record deal or something. I'm not sure. But I wish Oliver Sacks would have met with that guy and got some interesting theories on him. But he said it himself. I think he had a quote saying playing his music on the street was a way to stop the voices in his head, just like the Tourette's guy. Playing drums was able to counteract the imbalance in his brain, whatever it was, to give him tics and stuff, or at least make him feel like he's in control, I guess. I think that's what it really was. All right, let's continue. Again, I'm not going to pretend to be technical about this. I don't know anything about the brain or psychology. All right, let's continue. Rachel Y was a gifted composer and performer in her early 40s when she came to see me a few years ago. She had been a passenger in a car that had skidded off the road and into a tree. She suffered severe head and spine injuries and was paralyzed in her legs and right arm. She lay in a coma for some days, followed by a twilight state for several weeks, before finally emerging into consciousness. She then discovered that though her intelligence and powers of language were intact, something extraordinary had happened to her perception of music, and she described this in a letter. There is before the accident and there is after the accident. So many things change, so many things are different. Some changes are easier to take than others. The most difficult one is the enormous change in my musical abilities and in the perception of music. I cannot remember all my musical abilities, but I do remember the fluency and easiness, the no effort feeling in anything I tried to do musically. Listening to music was a complex process of quick analysis of form, harmony, melody, key, historical, period, instrumentation. Listening was linear and horizontal at the same time. It was all at the tip of my fingers, at the tip of my ears. I just thought this was a really, maybe the best explanation of what a composer would be like. And how it changed in her before and after her accident. A car accident, skidded off the road and hit a tree, and then her perception was just completely different. It's really interesting. Today, almost 8 years after her accident, or after the accident, I still hear the 4 laser beams equally, 4 intense voices. And when I listen to an orchestra, I hear 20 intense laser voices. It's extremely difficult to integrate all these different voices into some entity that makes sense. I don't know. I thought her story was pretty interesting to me as whether she was a composer or some kind of musician, I forget. Yeah, she was both a composer and a performer in her early 40s, just like me. So maybe that's why I highlighted like this whole chapter. I thought her story was really telling about how the brain perceives music, whether you're making it or listening to it. It could be a different experience. People always say, you never know how to look through somebody else's eyes, or people see colors differently. People see space differently, geography different. You don't know how it would feel to live in somebody else's eyeballs. It's the same for music, I guess. You don't know how people hear stuff. Why do some people love a composer and some people hate it? I don't know. It's just like anything else in art, I guess. All right, let's continue. I'm almost like halfway through. Maybe it's not too bad of a pace. All right, let's go. He talks about key, how people have perfect pitch and some people are atonal. It was interesting. I'll read this bit of it. It wasn't the best part of this book, to be honest, but I could see why for a musician, that's kind of integral. That's where I feel it's the savant thing. I liken it to that, where the guy in that documentary was able to hear a piano piece one time and then perfectly repeat it, and he could play it in that key or in different keys. Or the guy asked him, "Can you play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star like in Western salon type of style?" And he just does it automatically. People can do that. Take a song that's very simple and then play it in 5 time or different time signatures. And yeah, those people are gifted, man. I guess it's you could get there if you practice enough. The real question concerning absolute pitch, wrote Diana Deutsch in 2004, is not why some people possess it, but rather why it is not universal. It is as though most people have a syndrome with respect to the labeling of pitches, which is like color anomia, in which the patient can recognize colors and discriminate between them, but cannot associate them with verbal labels. I've never knew any of this stuff existed, where people can't even, something in their brain won't allow them to even name what color they're looking at. The brain is crazy. I did take like an intro to sight class in college. I remember that. And one of the first classes, the teacher like passed around the brain in a jar, and you don't really know what you're really looking at. You're like, this is what's in my fucking skull right now, this sponge thing. But it's pretty interesting how they can determine how your brain reacts to music, how your brain reacts when you're composing, imagining music, and when you're actually listening to it. And other stuff that they talk about. I'm not going to get into detail because I can't really do that. This is another person who had a pitch issue. You work with the ears you have, not the ears you want. I just thought that was a good way, a good philosophy to live by. Some people think Bob Dylan isn't the greatest vocalist, but other people think he has more of a natural level of singing. I'm kind of in between. I do enjoy his singing, but it's all relative. He's talking more about pitch and noticing perfect pitch and stuff like that. Some people are just naturally amusical, I think was the term, if that's correct. It's kind of tone deaf. All right, this was another patient who had a hydrocephalus, I think that's swelling of the brain, and seizures in addition to autism. He cannot tie his shoes. He cannot add 3 plus 2, but he can play you a movement of a Beethoven symphony and transpose it to any key. I think that's what I was just talking about. Maybe you're just talking about the savants here. Yeah, the powers that are heightened in savant skills are always of a concrete sort, whereas those that are impaired is abstract and often linguistic. So the language is always impaired, but something else will, like a superpower, will come out of that. It's really interesting. Maybe they're the ones with the evolved brains, and we're the ones behind, because we look at them like they have some disorder, but maybe they're able to focus such a crazy amount that nobody else can do pretty much in the world. There's very few people like that. They can focus so greatly on a piece of music, and like they wrote it, they would have it in their brain after one listen. And not just that, they could play it in other keys. Like, that's just crazy to me. I'm sorry, that's crazy. I have trouble remembering chord arrangements. Not that I ever performed stuff, but the one time I did an open mic, that was a big issue for me. Remembering the words and the chords, I guess it comes with practice. Like, I always talk about Springsteen, people with like hundreds and hundreds of songs. Even though you perform these songs a million times, how many times has Springsteen played Thunder Road or something? He probably hates it now. And I guess you just get used to it. It becomes a part of your language, like an actor remembering a Shakespeare play. Why don't we all have savant talents? They suggested that the mechanism for such skills might reside in all of us in early life, but that as the brain matures, they are inhibited, at least from conscious awareness. They theorized that savants might have privileged access to lower levels of information not available through introspection. So that's kind of what I was talking about. Yeah, this chapter, I'll skip it. It's just about blind musicians. He talks about a lot of them: Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, Art Tatum, Jose Feliciano. I never knew he was blind until that. Rahsaan Roland Kirk, Doc Watson. And then he talks about a lot of the blind Lemon Jefferson, blind Boys of Alabama, blind Willie McTell, blind Willie Johnson. That's a name I couldn't think of. And this chapter was more about how other senses are heightened because you don't have your sight. Other senses will be heightened. I've heard that a lot of people talk about that. Even when blindness begins later in life, such reallocation can occur. Nadine Gaab, in their study of one late blinded musician with absolute pitch, were able to show extensive activation of both visual association areas while he listened to music. All right, let's continue. I'm going to skip over some of this stuff. There's just too much to get into. If you're interested in this stuff, like I could stop now, I guess. I've been through about half the book so far. Just stuff that I've highlighted to speak about that relate to my own relationship with music, my affair with music that hopefully continues into my 50s and 60s. I'm doing everything backwards, kind of. I'm kind of in reverse at this point, where I have all the stuff already written and composed pretty much in my head or in crappy demos that probably would serve as a blueprint, and that is very helpful to get a starting point when I want to record these songs. But I am doing things in reverse because I didn't put myself out there until 2020 with all the work I've done over the last 20 years. Yeah, again, this is talking about synesthesia. I thought that was pretty funny. There was a kid, and he remembers his first grade teacher seeing him staring into space. Asked what he was looking at, he replied that he was counting the colors till Friday, because each day of the week to him had a color associated with it. The whole class then burst into laughter, and thereafter he kept such matters to himself. So he's probably just this poor kid. Everything has a color association. Like that is a form of synesthesia. Yeah, it's not just about music. Color is not added to music; it is integral to it. This is the same person named Patrick. He only wishes that others could share this totality, and he tries to suggest it, he says, as fully as he can in his own songs. So it's pretty cool. I've heard synesthesia on Instagram. I think there was a person trying to describe what they see when they play a note or hear a song. And everyone's probably, of course, everyone's different. Yeah. Let me go through it. It was an interesting look at that because I didn't really know that might be some brain. I don't want to call it a malfunction because maybe that's a gift. Like you got to be careful with these terms, right? I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying that about people. But for all of them, synesthesia is natural, almost an extra sense. So much so that such questions as what is it like or what does it mean to you are as unanswerable as asking what is it like to be alive? What is it like to be you? So yeah, it is like another sense, almost like touch or anything. It's just associated with music for a lot of people. I never experienced anything like that. I never knew that existed until, I don't know, sometime in my 30s when I heard people talking about it. Synesthesia. And maybe that's why there are visual arts so connected to music. Maybe everyone has a form of that. We just don't really know it. It's like our subconscious. When artists design exhibitions or whatever to showcase their music with light shows like Pink Floyd was famous for, even when they did The Wall and stuff like that, it's very interesting to me. All right, we're going to fly along here because I don't want to talk too much about this book. I feel like I needed to do this because I need something to base these talks on, and I feel like reading is good for me right now. I'm in a very frustrated place. Like I said before, I'm just trying to move on with my life, get a job, and go to the West Coast. And I never thought it would take this long. This is 3 months of trying to get a job, not a career, a job, just a simple job to make money. And I thought Starbucks would be the preferred way to do it. I don't have to work with food. I'm vegan, which kind of leads me to not wanting to handle food. I've never worked with food in my life, so I really don't want to get into it. Um, so I figured Starbucks was good. It's mostly beverages, maybe some desserts and stuff. And, I just want to work my shift 5 days a week and then buy land somewhere along the West Coast eventually, build my music studio out of a shipping container and go on like that. It's not going to be an immediate thing because my dream of last year it did not even become close to reality. I'm not saying whether it should or shouldn't. All I know is it didn't work. The Kickstarter to get 33,000 people to give me $15, because that's kind of what the math would come to get the amount of money I think I need to be comfortable in my life. But this was not something, when I got terminated from my job in 2021, again, it was no fault of my own, but I lost my job of 11 years, which really sucked. But I was in a bad place then too. So I just decided to go my own way and build my own business. I had my 401k money and I was going to live off of that. And that's what I did until I got evicted. And it didn't work out as planned. And now I'm a year later from being evicted, just about. And I tried to be a nurse. I worked at an Amazon place for 3 months. And everything I was doing, I was trying to be positive about things. I really was, man. I was learning new ways to meditate, to appreciate music and prayer again. Bought the rosaries to pray the rosary. I was doing a lot of good stuff. I did hot yoga for like a month or maybe a little bit longer than that. I was trying to get into karate. Maybe that was the path I should have stayed with, because now I'm kind of like into that right now. I have like an orange headband and orange shorts in case I run at night. So I'm like Michelangelo from the fucking Ninja Turtles. That's kind of what like my childhood brain is telling me to work out like. But I don't. The point of this is I'm just frustrated right now. I need a new experience, and I decided that I just need a job, not a career, not something that would be 12, 14 hours a day where you're on call and no management. I want nothing like that. I'm just a worker. Just want a job where I can work with no bullshit, no political bullshit, nothing. Just, this is what we want you to do. This is how you do it. So go do it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And do that for the next 20 years or until I don't have to. Until I can make money off music and art. That's my path. And the reason I'm so frustrated is because it's taken 3 months and I just don't understand what the hell is taking so long to just get a simple job somewhere. Yeah, it gets me very frustrated, and because I've developed a bullshit radar that I call it, and I know it's some kind of bullshit, and I just don't know exactly what kind of bullshit it is, but I have some ideas at least. All right, let's continue back with this book. Do I want to read this? Not really. This is more towards the end of the book now. Um, it's not the easiest book to read because he does have a lot of anecdotes about certain people, his patients and stuff, but that's just the type of book it is. It's almost like a medical journal. All right, this is another story about Aldridge, who relied on music frequently, both to mask his tics and to channel their explosive energy. I would learn to harness the enormous energy of Tourette syndrome and control it like a high pressure fire hose. This might have been the gentleman that was in the documentary. And yeah, he was pretty impressive playing the drums. This chapter was all about Tourette's. Another passage here. I live my life controlled by Tourette's, he said to me, but I use music to control it. I have harnessed its energy. I play with it, manipulate it, trick it, mimic it, taunt it, explore it, exploit it in every possible way. His newest piano concerto in some sections is full of turbulent, agitated whirls and twirls. But Picker writes in every mode, the dreamy and tranquil no less than the violent and stormy, and moves from one mood to another with consummate ease. Like maybe that his brain is like almost getting a recess from the annoyance of Tourette's. I'm sure it's crazy to live with that. I followed somebody on Twitch, Sweet Anita. She has that too, Tourette syndrome, and she talked about it a couple of times how hard it is for her to control certain things. I never knew anyone personally with it, but the way it explores the music therapy is really the theme of this book, and it's not just for people with Tourette's and stuff like that, or Alzheimer's. Anyone could benefit from the healing power of music if they want to. It's an individual decision that people either go down that road or they don't want to. It's almost like eating the forbidden apple. Some people are like that. They only want to listen to certain music from certain time periods or certain modes, Western, Eastern. Some people are kind of music racist, musical bigots, where they just get so used to one form of music and they don't want to get out of their comfort zones. A lot of stuff you could use that same example, but I think it's important to explore different things. I said it before, I'm not even close to exploring different types of music in Eastern European cultures, Russia, China. Asian music is completely foreign to me. I have no idea. Or Iceland, Viking stuff, or I don't know. You can go to any country. Like I feel like Mexico would probably be really interesting. I like mariachi music. I don't know what else in terms of music would really be termed Mexican. But then what is American music? I guess people associate America, which is rock and roll. But is that the UK influence on what became American rock and roll? Like, these conversations are kind of stupid. All right, this was somebody else. What are we talking about here? Yeah, I think Oliver Sacks always talks about Mendelssohn as his favorite composer. I never really got into him, but now we're talking about Alzheimer's. One of his stories here. He does everything about one of his patients. He does everything singing to himself. But if he is interrupted and loses the thread, he comes to a complete stop, doesn't know his clothes or his own body. He sings all the time, eating songs, dressing songs, bathing songs, everything. So singing while he does stuff. He can't do anything unless he makes it a song. It's kind of interesting. It's almost like a childlike response. As a kid, you always want to make these little riddles or songs. I don't know. I can't think of any. Where's my inner child, damn it? But that is kind of childlike, but if it's helpful, yeah, get back to your childhood. Rhythm, in this sense, the integration of sound and movement, can play a great role in coordinating and invigorating basic locomotor movement. I found this when I was rowing myself down the mountain to the Volga Boatman song, and when the Mendelssohn enabled me to walk again. Musical rhythm can be valuable, similarly to athletes, as the physician Malini Kinnison, a competitive cyclist and triathlete, observed to me. This is taken from her response. One day in the early stages of an important time trial event, a few bars of the overture to Orpheus in the Underworld by Offenbach started playing in my head. This was wonderful. It stimulated my performance, settled my cadence at just the right tempo, and synchronized my physical efforts with my breathing. Time collapsed. I was truly in the zone, and for the first time in my life, I was sorry to see the finish line. My time was a personal best. This was so intriguing to me. This is me speaking now. I had to listen to that right after I learned of this story. Orpheus in the Underworld. I found something on Bandcamp that I checked out. It was pretty good. Very relaxing. That's something I've always, like, as I'm working out now, I need to have music or some podcast that just helps me zone out. I like working out, but starting a routine is difficult. Getting in the rhythm of wanting to expose your body to pain, because that's what exercise is. It's pain management. You just have to train your body to ignore that. If you want more on that, go read David Goggins. I can't say more. Right now, I'm just lifting broomsticks over my head and pretending I'm a ninja. Getting your legs stronger is the most important thing. In my experience of doing this in 2020, when I was getting back in shape and quit smoking in 2020, it was all about getting your legs strong. Everything comes from that, and then your core. But you have to walk before you run, like they always say. Like Brandon Graham was saying that. Let's see if he comes out of retirement again. Brandon Graham. God bless that dude. I don't know. I don't know if is he still playing? I don't even know. But that's pretty crazy, man. Yeah, this is somebody else. Leibniz said of music that it is counting, but counting unconsciously. And this is precisely what Swimming to Strauss is all about. That might be from his personal anecdote, Oliver Sacks. I think he swims to Strauss. That kind of zones him out or something. Or he's able to count along to it, which I was trying to do. This book was very helpful, actually, in terms of exercise, forming a headspace for that. So I'm glad I read this. I didn't plan to read this until, I don't know, maybe a week ago. So it was a welcome thing. I bought this book like years ago. I just never read it. That's how I kind of do things. When I hear of an interesting book, I'll buy it and then just read it later when I get the urge to. Did song, in fact, precede speech, as Darwin thought? Did speech precede music, as his contemporary Herbert Spencer believed? Or did both develop simultaneously, as Mithin proposes? I thought that was an interesting approach. I never thought of that. Maybe music in that form of communication, maybe that's what the Druids were doing. I don't know. The musical element to communication was probably very important in tribal times when it was mostly grunts and whatever the hell else. I'm just guessing that's what it was like. There might be something else about how your physical and facial expressions are actually more important than the words you use. There is some energy to that. Donald proposes that mimesis, the power to represent emotions, external events, or stories using only gesture and posture, movement and sound, but not language, is still the bedrock of human culture today. he sees rhythm as having a unique role in relation to mimesis. That's what I was just talking about. It's an interesting way to look at it. I'm going into customer service if I get this job. I've had 4 Starbucks opportunities. No one ever got back to me. I still have an interview that I had a few days ago. I'm still hopeful that that one finally gets back to me. It was somewhere in California near Oakland, San Carlos, I think. So yeah, I'm at the point where I'm just going to get on a bus and go to Vegas. I feel like if I need to find a job, Vegas is probably the best opportunity with all the casinos and the service industry. I really don't know where else to go. All right, let's continue. Let me go a little bit faster now. I really don't want to talk about this too long, drag this out more than I am. The reason I do this is just so I have a basis to explore my thoughts. Before I was reading books, I would just have these 2-hour talks, and I feel like I kept repeating myself, and I might still be doing that because I really don't have too much to say anymore. But I felt like if I read a book, it would at least attract people to a different perspective that's not coming from my brain. Yeah, this was an interesting quote here. I once invited the poet W.H. Auden to one of Kitty's sessions, and he was amazed by the instant transformations which music could effect. They reminded him of an aphorism of the German romantic writer Novalis. Every disease is a musical problem. This is a quote. Every cure is a musical solution. Again, going back to music as a healing force. This seemed almost literally to be the case with these profoundly Parkinsonian patients. So even in Parkinson's, he talks about music therapy. It's really amazing. Another quote here from the book. Music liberated her from her Parkinsonism for a long time. I never knew that was a word, Parkinsonism. And not only playing music, but imagining it. And he talks about the EEGs that they would do to show the differences. That's a part of that documentary that's pretty interesting. When they would show these brain waves, where is all these sparks coming from? I think it was the frontal lobe. All right, let's continue. He talks about the power of music on other philosophers, and this is from Nietzsche. It is music that the Parkinsonian needs. No, this is just from Sachs, sorry. The Will to Power is a Nietzsche. The Will to Power came alive for me only when I came to Beth Abraham. And kind of dealt with people and to show how music can awaken people, I think he's talking about. Yeah, I guess that was kind of inspiring for him when he was meeting people like that. Yeah, that is a powerful movie, and I'm kind of being fake here because this was like 20 years ago when I watched this. Awakenings, I have to watch it again, but I do remember being pretty intrigued by it. De Niro was like one of the patients that just had this mask of a face, never had any emotion. It is music that the Parkinsonian needs, for only music, which is rigorous yet spacious, sinuous and alive, can evoke responses that are equally so. And he needs not only the metrical structure of rhythm and the free movement of melody, its contours and trajectories, its ups and downs, its tensions and relaxations, but the will and intentionality of music to allow him to regain the freedom of his own kinetic melody. So again, you go back to that internal music that's playing inside of us at all times, possibly. We don't really know it, and sometimes I guess we do if it's so overpowering. If I had musical hallucinations right now, I guess I wouldn't be able to speak these words. It would be too difficult to speak over the music in my head. That's kind of what I got from some of these explorations that he was talking about. Um, all right. There's only a little bit left in this book. We went through most of the most important things here. He talks about Wagner, Das Rheingold. I had once recognized that the orchestral overture to the Rheingold, which must have long lain latent within me, though it had been unable to find definite form, had at least been revealed to me. I then quickly realized my own nature. The stream of life was not to flow to me from without, but from within. He's talking about dreams here, I think. Maybe Wagner experienced some songs or compositions while he was dreaming. There's the famous Keith Richards story. I think he talks about Paul McCartney. And I've had it happen to me, waking up in the middle of the night and just trying to get a melody out. If it happens like that, sometimes I would be like, I don't even want to do it. When I was back in my apartment, I would be like, there's a couple times where I was like, fuck, man. 2 or 3 in the morning, I have work in a couple hours, but I have to go into the bathroom and mumble stuff into my phone because these melodies will not go away. This book connected to me on that level. Who's he talking about here? Hold on. Yeah, this is Berlioz. It's cool he mentioned him because that's my favorite composer or favorite symphony is the Symphonie Fantastique. But I think he's just talking about something else here. This is Berlioz talking. More I seemed to see written. I woke in a state of feverish excitement. I sang the theme to myself. Its form and character pleased me exceedingly. Was on the point of getting up. Then my previous thoughts recurred and held me fast. Lay still, steeling myself against temptation, clinging to the hope I would forget. At last I fell asleep, and when I next awoke, all recollection of it had vanished forever. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That's why I'm saying don't delete stuff, don't, because I'll do it sometimes. I'm too lazy to try to represent what I hear in my head. Like, I looked like an idiot going up and down the driveway, chanting my tribal chants, whatever. But I had to do it because I don't know if it's going to be something or if it's just complete nonsense yet. So you can't have any, what's the word, shyness. You can't have any editing at the initial stage. Don't edit yourself right away. Just get out your nonsense, man, whatever it is. When I was trying to make punk riffs for Culture Wars, I wrote an album in like literally 2 hours in the winter time when we had that big blizzard in New Jersey. I wrote an entire punk album of like maybe 8 or 10 songs in an hour or 2 hours. And then I was like, well, I only have the general melodies and lyrics. So I just started making guitar riffs, like punk melodies, and just mumbling them. I don't know if that's going to add anything, but it could. There might be something when I hear that later. It's the same thing with certain people on Instagram. They were listening to bird sounds, and then they would make riffs from the bird sounds. That's a technique I've never tried, but it is kind of interesting. But that's field recording. You could use anything as inspiration. All right, this is Irving J. Massey. I don't know who he is. He points out that music is the only faculty that is not altered by the dream environment, whereas action, character, visual elements, and language may all be modified or distorted in dreams. I thought that was something hard to conceptualize. Music is the only faculty that's not altered by the dream environment. How do you even know that? I don't know. It's too complicated, so I'm just going to move on. This is also from Massey. Music in dreams then is the same as music in our waking life. One might say that music never sleeps. That's a great quote right there. It could drive you insane, but I think that's pretty cool. It is as if it were an autonomous system, indifferent to our consciousness or lack of it. His conclusion also seems supported by the accuracy and seemingly indelible quality of musical memory as it is manifest in musical imagery, brainworms, and most strikingly in musical hallucinations, as well as the apparent imperviousness of music to the ravages of amnesia or dementia. Again, it's complicated. I can't really say too much about what he's talking about. Musical memory as it is manifest in musical imagery, brainworms. That kind of makes me think of sometimes I come up with a riff or a melody and I'm like, am I stealing this from something? It's something in my subconscious that I heard as a kid or I heard on the radio or going through Walmart. Maybe I heard something. I'm sure that's something that people have when you're trying to write a song. You're like, is this a derivative of somebody? And this is from Darwin in his autobiography. I'm sorry if I'm going too quickly, but I just want to get through these last few pages. This is from Darwin in his autobiography. The loss of these tastes, this curious and lamentable loss of the higher aesthetic taste, is a loss of happiness and may possibly be injurious to the intellect, and more probably to the moral character, by enfeebling the emotional part of our nature. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The people who have that fear of music, that's the like crazy horror. That's the worst thing, I think. Some people are allergic to beer. Some people are allergic to chocolate. That sucks. Hopefully they can cure that shit, because even though I don't do any of that stuff, it is delicious. But if you have a fear of music, like music actually causes you horror in your life, then yeah, that's kind of a really fucked way to live. Because imagine your life without music. People were saying this when everything was shutting down during the pandemic. What's more important, sports or music? It's too hard. They're both forms of escape that are necessary, or I don't know. That was the term back then. Essential, all essential personnel, whatever that was. But I don't know. I couldn't live without listening to the Phillies game last night. That's probably why I couldn't sleep, because it was like such an amazing ending to the game. One of the best games I've ever listened to on the radio, where they scored like 7 or 8 runs in ninth inning with 2 outs. That's like what kids do in the backyard. 2 outs, bottom of the ninth. Brandon Marsh hits a home run. Bryson Stott hits a home run. It was just crazy. I couldn't believe it was actually happening. So yeah, it's tough imagining a world without music, or when the government censorship is so strict that only certain forms of entertainment are allowed and everything else is underground. There's always a line between the mainstream and underground in art. But if that gets too crazy and artists can't even survive. And it was funny in this book, he talks about Berlioz saying, I'm going to compose this new piece, this new symphony, whatever it was, and I'm going to make no money from it. Whatever happens to it, I'll perform it. I'll have to pay money to the agents or whatever they were back then to put his show on. And he has to take advances to be able to write this stuff and whatever. Even back then, it seemed like artists didn't make any money at all. But hopefully it's better today. I don't know. I hear bad things about Spotify. I hear bad things. Musicians can barely survive even if they tour. I was listening to Butthole Surfers podcast last night as I couldn't go to sleep. And I remember a story they were telling that in the early days, they were just traveling in this beat up van and they could barely afford to keep going from show to show. And they had to put oil in the van like every 20 minutes or so, whatever it was. And then eventually the thing just got caked with oil and set on fire. That's a story you hear a lot about, maybe especially punk bands that didn't really get the commercial success that they deserve. Maybe the Butthole Surfers got there eventually. Hopefully, at least. I think they're a pretty important band in American music. Probably a band no one talks about enough. I only know like two of their albums, so of course I shouldn't be the one talking about them. But I feel like from what I've heard, they're pretty. Maybe them and the Melvins. They're the two bands I need to go down their discographies intensely because I don't know anything about them really, and I know I'll like it. I just never did it. All right, continuing on here. While medication can damp down the positive symptoms, it rarely has any effect on the negative ones, which are often more disabling. And it is here, as Ulrich have shown, that music therapy can be particularly useful and may help open up isolated, asocial people in a humane and coercive way. Sorry, in a humane and uncoercive way. That's pretty. Going back to Alzheimer's and people inflicted with dementia and even schizophrenia, I think it was what they were really talking about here. Going back to the Wesley Willis, I think that's why I highlighted this, so I would remember that. When I was in nursing school a couple months ago, we learned about a lot of these disorders, if that's the right word to use, and what could set people off and what could calm people down. And music was something mentioned as a calming force for people suffering from stuff like that. You can't remember your own name or your family, but you hear a piece of music and all of a sudden you're singing along to something, or it hits a memory that you didn't even know was in your head. All right, let's continue. This is, all right, let me read this real quick. There's a author, Steve Lopez, who wrote a book called The Soloist, and this is what he was talking about. This guy named Nathaniel Ayers. This reminded me of Wesley Willis. Nathaniel Ayers, who, after a brilliant start as a student at Juilliard, fell into a deep schizophrenia and ultimately lived as a homeless man on the streets of downtown Los Angeles, where occasionally he would play ravishingly on a battered violin with two missing strings. I'm going to have to read this book. It seems pretty interesting to me. That's why I said I wish there was more. Maybe there is books about Wesley Willis. There are books about him. I don't know. Something I'll have to look at later. It's, yeah, that's an inspiration. Musicians that do it because they're fighting against schizophrenia or some other mental delirium. Of course, that's going to be an interesting look at how music can be a healing force or how music can just keep people normal. All right, let's continue. All right, I'm going to skip. This chapter I'm skipping over is more about stroke patients, but it's the same type of thing. Certain parts of their brain might get depleted, but other parts of their brain become more enhanced. And a lot of that is about musical performance. I'm sure there's nurses and doctors neurologists that could add really insightful things here, but I'm just going by Oliver Sacks' accounts here. I don't have any personal stories to add. Thank, you know, thank whatever, thank the universal forces that I never had to deal with people with diseases like that. That's got to be crazy if you can't remember your day to day life. The aim of music therapy in people with dementia is far broader than this. It seeks to address the emotions, cognitive powers, thoughts, and memories, the surviving self of the patient, to stimulate these and bring them to the fore. It aims to enrich and enlarge existence, to give freedom, stability, organization, and focus. Yeah, it's pretty, I don't really need to add too much to that. That's my phrase today. It's pretty I'm usually saying but. I have weird transitions in between when I'm moving on to a different topic. A lot of people just go, and I do that too. I need to take more notes when I listen to these talks later about how I can improve my diction and stuff. Yeah, I've had a problem with breath control in terms of singing, and sometimes I do that with speaking too. But I think working out is going to cure a lot of this stuff, give me more confidence. And as the one Kimber video I remember, she's getting ready to perform at a concert, and she's doing all these crazy stretches to help her vocalizations. So singing and music is a physical, demanding type of career as a performer. All right, this is towards the end here. But to those who are lost in dementia, the situation is different. Music is no luxury to them, but a necessity, and can have a power beyond anything else to restore them to themselves and to others, at least for a while. All right, and that's the end. I think dementia was one of the more connective tissues about how music therapy can really help people, even if it's not going to cure people, but it can help them at least feel some happiness and some comfort and feel like themselves, maybe. Again, that's all I can say. I don't have enough experience at all to talk about these things. The reason I wanted to talk about this book, I just needed something to talk about. And I think it connected to what I'm going to get into now for a little bit, which is a song from my album, The Dream of Rapture, because this is Evolution of a Song number 8, which is really just a way to explore some of my old songs. This one was probably from, I don't know, 2018 or so. Nah, this is 2020. I had this nightmare in 2020 about the Cyclops and the end of the world. I kind of tell the story in the chapter in my book, so I'll skip over it, but I already kind of talked about it, that it could be kind of an HBO series. It was that kind of a epic overhead shot of all these creatures coming up from the ocean bottom, like they've been hiding there and building an army waiting to take over Earth, or to take over the whatever. I don't know where I set this in. It was just a shore town or some shit. But if I made this into a screenplay, yeah, it would be like every ocean just gets drained like in a funnel. And from the depths of the ocean, all these creatures emerge and just, rip shit up and take over this realm, or whatever you want to call it. But I wanted to get into the last song on this album. To give you an idea of why this album is different, every song is a kind of connected. So the first song is called The Cyclops Drinks, ... and the oceans drain as the vigilant fall from tractors and tanks. But Michael rose for tomorrow's end. The Cyclops speaks, and the skeptics soar, counting their scars on the rising tides. With no warning proposed, some forge higher. So every song, I think it was 12, is a continuation of what this experience was like, to have a weird dream like that. I've talked about some other dreams I've had about nuclear bombs hitting a baseball field and shit like that. This was similar, because I don't remember a lot of my dreams. The ones that I do that I feel like could be explored through art, very few. Maybe these are only 2. So why do I want to talk about this song, Some Forge Higher? It's very simple melody, maybe overly simplistic, purposefully. Not that my songs are ever really that complicated. I felt like this was a good balancing out because the last time I had a talk a few days ago was about Radiation Highway and COVID and all the crazy shit like that. Some dark shit. This is a very happy, waltzy song, and it's relating to the book. I think that's what music should aim to do at times. Number one, I think it should be honest. It should be an honest reflection of the artist, whatever they're trying to portray. It doesn't have to be preachy, but I think honesty is important. So it's not just plastic AI shit, that type of an experience. And I guess I'll just get right into it. First, I'll just read the lyrics and then I'll go through the melodies and try to sing this the best I can. So this is a song called Some Forge Higher. It's off the album Dream of Rapture. And most of these are spoken word. And don't ask me how the music goes. I would have to go back and look at the audio files. And maybe I'll pick out a few to share, and including, well, only this one. I'm not doing the whole album today. I'm just doing one song. But this one has a very kind of uplifting appeal that maybe is kind of different than other stuff I've written. It's more of a unique type of a composition that I don't really do a lot. So I figured it came out organically. I don't think I wrote this. No, I was going to say I wrote this on a ukulele because it has that type of spirit to it. Maybe it could be a ukulele song, but no, I didn't have that. It was written on acoustic guitar. And I'll share the crappy recording when I post this on Substack and other places, Medium and YouTube. Memories haunt in disguise, misery summoned in circles, symmetry scoring the rise, echoes the beat that connects us. Some will take you higher, some roll out with the fall, some will feed the longing, some to fade the arrival. Evidence under the pride measures the rate of expansion. Wilderness wandered within, scaling the clearest deception. Memories haunt in disguise. Memories haunt in disguise. Some will take you higher. Some roll out with the fall. It's kind of overlapping at the end. All right, let me try to get these melodies out and see where this song could evolve. I think the main thing is just to keep it rising. If you could do a key change, I think that would be kind of interesting. I'm not going to attempt to do it because I'm not good at, like I was talking about, the key changes that people can do so effortlessly. I'm not very good at that. I don't even know what my register is in my voice. I just think it's an annoying voice. I don't know what key like I can sing in. I was watching something on Instagram that I never saw before. There was a street performer, and he's about to play Tennessee Whiskey. You're as sweet as Tennessee Whiskey. Pretty famous song. And he asked the guy in the crowd, "What's your key, man?" And the guy just said, "Whatever." And then he started playing it in that key, and the guy sang it like flawlessly. It was probably set up. It just seemed too perfect to be some improvised thing like that, or some unplanned occurrence, but it was pretty interesting. So I don't know that. Somebody would have to tell me what I can sing in, because I don't know. Never been in a choir. And there's that story about Brian Eno that when he came to New York, he was in a gospel choir. It's not something I would be comfortable with. I don't know how to sing with other people. I'd be very sheepish, and I don't have a lot of confidence in my abilities, but I think everything just comes down to if I can get more confidence in either practice or with my working out, get more physically fit, then I could get more comfortable maybe singing with other people someday. But, it's not something I care about that much. Right now, my biggest concern is just getting to the West Coast and doing this thing before I get too old and it just shrivels up into nothingness. I'm 44, I keep saying that. a couple nights ago, I was having a talk with myself, as I tend to do, and I was listening to Mike Gundy. What was it, Oklahoma State, maybe? I should look this up. If people don't know this famous rant, Mike Gundy, it was a while ago, but it's my favorite rant, I think. Like, I love this dude. Yeah, Oklahoma State. Um, he was just fired, I think, September 2025. But yeah, he's a legendary coach from Oklahoma State over 20 years or so. 170-90 record or whatever. Reading this from Google right now. But he has that famous rant where he's talking about, I'm 40, I'm a man. And that's like my favorite rant of all time. I watched it from time to time. He's like standing up for his younger players, saying the media is ripping these kids apart. And these kids are good people. They do the right thing. That's why I don't read the newspaper. Just go listen. If you don't know this, what I'm talking about, search Mike Gundy football rant, Mike Gundy rant, and you'll find it quickly. It's pretty famous. I'm 44. Like, I need to start this process. It's why I'm so frustrated, and I feel like other people, if people are playing games with my life, they just have to stop, dude. I have a lot of energy right now, motivation out the ass, and I'm trying to find a happy balance between, moving out west is a big thing. Moving out west, finding a place to live comfortably, finding people that I might be comfortable with, finding a group of employees, a place to work. These are all difficult things because I had a job for 11 years. I never had to do this shit, and then it did get thrown at me. I didn't ask for that shit. When I was just about 40 years old in 2021, I got fired. And yes, it was for no reason. They never gave me a reason. They just fired me and whatever. I just kind of, I was in a different place back then. You got to look back at where I was in 2021 when I got fired. I had my 401k money. I still had my apartment. I had a car. I wasn't completely like on the verge of homelessness where I was last year. And I don't know where I'm going now. I still feel like that by the end of July, I need to leave New Jersey. I wrote that this morning in my calendar. I'm going to leave New Jersey, even if I don't get a job by July 31st, because I don't know what else to do to get a job. And maybe the only way people will give me a job if I leave, because I don't want to be homeless. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I know I'm old enough where I need to do something. I can't just wither away. It's nothing against how people live. I'm not judging other people. I just need to find the path to do what I want to do, and it's not easy to do. I know a lot of people don't get to live out what they want to do in life, so don't take it like that. But at some point, I've lived this long, I don't feel like I can have the energy and the determination to do anything else. Yeah, I want to survive. If I can't do this art thing, I don't know how I'm going to live the rest of my life. It's not even like a plan B at this point. It's similar to how I thought last year, but last year I was like, I'm going to fucking make this Kickstarter happen. Something's going to kick in eventually. And it never happened. And it's the same feel now. And the people that are affecting my life they have to get out of the way, man. I don't know what else to do. So it is kind of, I'm being real here. Like, I'm not trying to make people feel sorry for me again, but I think a lot of people get stuck like this where they don't know what their next move is. And it's not fair when other people can play with your life and make shit up and confuse things to make you, to impede your progress in life. Because I don't do that to people. I've never played games with people's lives, manipulated people. I don't do that shit, and I would never do it. I've been honest about everything, and every interview that I've had with Starbucks or other places, I've been very honest about what my intentions are for the next 20 years. I'm going to get a job so I don't have to worry about going hungry. I'm going to keep living healthy, keep donating blood and platelets to the Red Cross, and I'm going to keep making my art until the day I die. It's never going to leave me. Eventually, I might slow down because I don't know what the future is. Making new stuff might not be a reality, but I haven't played a guitar in like a year almost. So that's going to be a whole enlightening experience again, learning where I left off. Because I used to play a good bit over a 20-year span. Yeah, I kind of developed a unique type of style. I was always in drop D and trying to make different chord arrangements for songs I liked. Like the Joy Formidable, I kind of had to rework things, or Rage Against the Machine to make acoustic. And they're not the greatest covers because I can't really perform things well. I thought I had an interesting take on how to play acoustic guitar. And I haven't played an electric guitar in probably over a decade. I can't even remember the last time I did. So it's going to be very enlightening to start doing this again. I listened to Earth again today, the Earth 2, that crazy no wave band that's like sludge rock, drone rock, and that's the shit I love, man. That's what I would try to play if I could. Some of these spoken word albums, like this one, maybe that would be the prototype, the template of what the music would be, and maybe I'll just do spoken word stuff for an album like this. But let me get to this song and try to sing this the best I can, because this one is not spoken word. All right, let me try this. Memories haunt in disguise. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Misery summoned in circles. Symmetry scoring the rise. I'm probably going too slow. Echoes the beat that connects us. Then the chorus. Some will take you higher. Dun, 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 dun. Some roll out with the fall. Dun, 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 dun. Some will feed the longing. Dun, 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 dun. Some to fade the arrival. Yeah, I know. I'm not completely tone deaf, but I know when I'm not hitting the right feel of a key or of a note. I'm going to share my acoustic version of this, and I think it'll help you see the potential of this song to be kind of a inspirational closer. A closing song to me, a good closing song on an album should have some kind of emotional impact. I can't really think of any offhand. Maybe that No Use for a Name, the feel good album of the summer, whatever it's called, of the year, from 2008, I think. Maybe that one ends like with a softer approach. I don't remember. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't think of anything now. But you just know, or the December's Hazards of Love, it ends with this really dramatic ballad, and ends it perfectly. The bookends of the Hazards of Love are just so good. So a good closing song can be either uplifting or maybe it's not, because I look at albums like movies. Sometimes movies have happy endings, a good climax, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just nothing. Easy Rider. It's making a point about the random chaos of life, which was very influential on my screenwriting. Easy Rider and how they ended that movie. It's one of my favorite endings. Probably my favorite. If I really had to pick one, it would be Easy Rider. How they end that movie. Just two dudes trying to experience life in America, like off the cuff, as outcasts, drug culture, and not exactly hippies because they're kind of making fun of the hippies in that, but they're just trying to go with the flow. Dennis Hopper. And then, yeah, the ending of that movie is just such a tragic thing, man. And it just ends like that. It leaves you feeling like, all right, I guess that's the morality tale. Don't go against the status quo or you're going to get shot by some dickhead with a shotgun. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to go down those avenues of how movies can lead to influence in my music too. All right, I'll try to sing the second verse. It's only two verses, so you won't have to deal with my voice too much longer. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Evidence under the pride. 1, 2, 3. Dun, 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 dun. Like, you could hear strings there. Like, I'll go back to Smashing Pumpkins. I started listening to Billy Corgan's podcast before this with what's his name, John Carpenter, and it was pretty interesting so far. I'll have to finish it later. But Tonight, some of the best strings ever. Like really, it's so good, man. It's such an uplifting song. I don't know where that is on that album. I don't think it's a closer, right? Might be near the beginning of it, the double album. But Tonight is just so good in terms of the string arrangement and everything. That's kind of interesting to look up. I want to say it's in the first act of that. What's that called again? Melancholy? Yeah. Let's see. From Wikipedia, which is usually right about stuff like this. The last song is Farewell and Goodnight. And, well, yeah, it is kind of the first song. There's a Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness instrumental, which leads into Tonight. I'm going to have to revisit this entire album. There's a lot of good songs on here. A lot of them I don't remember. But it ends with Farewell and Goodnight. So, yeah, it's only an hour long. I thought it was longer than that. But there's a lot of songs, man. There's 28 songs. Well, it's 2 hours. Each side is about an hour long. So strings could be very important in this song. Maybe that's the evolution that I wasn't really prepared to talk about. That there would be strings in this song to really drive home that uplifting climax. So evidence under the pride and measures the rate of expansion. Wilderness wandered within. 1, 2, 3. Scaling the clearest deception. Some will take you higher. Some roll out with the fall. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Some will feed the longing. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Some to fade the arrival. Yeah, it's hard for me to hit that. I don't know what that even is. Some to fade the arrival. And then the outro is just repeating that. One vocalization would go, memories haunt in disguise. 1, 2, 3. And the other more uplifting, dramatic voice, maybe a choir, is singing, some will take you higher. Some roll out with the fall. Some will feed the longing. Some to fade the arrival. So yeah, you could work out stuff there to make it sound better than my voice. There's harmony potential, and then just that epic outro with some strings and just crescendo it out. I don't know. I'll go back to the Day in the Life, the Beatles ending, the orchestration. I've always liked that. Again, one of the best ending songs, maybe of all time, A Day in the Life. I think that's the ending song, right? Yeah, the album ends with that crazy orchestration crescendo thing, and yeah, it's there's a story about how they did that, but I don't remember it. So there you go. It's a pretty simple song, not a lot of words. Maybe there is a connection to some of the themes in Oliver Sacks' book, The Memories Haunt in Disguise, Misery Summoned in Circles, Symmetry Scoring the Rise, Echoes the Beat that Connects Us. I'm not sure what I'm writing about, but I think it's just about the power of music, maybe. Or I'm going to fit that in here conveniently and make it sound like that. Some will take you higher. Yeah, this is not about drugs. Some roll out with the fall. Some will feed the longing. Some to fade the arrival. It's nothing specific. These are just the words that I came up with. Evidence under the pride measures the rate of expansion. Wilderness wandered within, scaling the clearest deception. Yeah, a lot of my shit back then, when I was writing lyrics in 2022, was a lot of my frustrations back then with being manipulated by people, which still occurs in my life. And again, I'm not playing the victim, I'm just stating the reality of what I'm going through. So other people who go through this and have come out stronger, or are not doing so well with it, can actually see that other people are going through it. I have a clear path in life. I said this. My frustration is not that I don't have a purpose. It's that I don't know how to do it in a very efficient manner because I don't care about anything else. I just know I'm not going to live till I'm 200 years old. Everyone has a limited time in their bodies, and you never know what's going to happen to your body or your mind. So you have to really go balls out in America, especially because everyone's going balls out in America. I'm not in it for the money. I'm just in it so I can do this. I don't want to stop this train because it's still a lot of momentum, and I feel like I deserve that opportunity at least. I'm going to do it myself by getting a job and doing it the right way like that. I won't be able to just compose music all day and night and record stuff like I was planning to do. But yeah, it's not going to happen in New Jersey. There's bad memories here. Just a lot of bad juju. I'll put it like that. And I feel like if I escape from that, like escape from New York, I'll be escaped from New Jersey. That's a good way to look at it. Speaking of John Carpenter, right? And I'll just go and find a different place to exist. As I really need that at this point. I don't know how much longer I could stay in this state, which is why I wrote that in my calendar. And I don't even know what to apply to anymore. Hopefully, this Starbucks thing works because it makes sense to me. I could be good at that job. A lot of the places I apply to says you have to be here for in-person interview. That makes no sense to me. I could do Zoom or the Teams meeting because I can't just go out there for an interview. I don't have the money or that ability to do that. I need to actually have a secure job first. So if anyone out there listening in Radio Land, in Substack land, whatever the fuck land, yeah, I'm just trying to work. I'm a worker. I'm not going to say I can do anything because I can't do anything, but I'm a pretty quick learner at that, if that's what's important. And yeah, I don't do anything else besides making art and doing these talks. And right now, trying to get back into shape so I'm ready for this. I don't know what type of job I'm going to get, but I want something that's stable so I can do it for 20 years. Even if I got a warehouse job, I don't know how long can I do that? It's mostly young people in their 20s. Like there is a difference. I did the Amazon job fine. It wasn't bad on my body or anything. I wore like a back brace just to prevent any injuries. during that 3 month experience in the wintertime. And it wasn't like crazy physical work. There was some lifting and some bending down all day for like 8 hours. It wasn't that bad though. I would have kept doing it even though it kind of sucked. I would have kept working there. And if Amazon hired me to warehouse in Arizona or New Mexico or California or Nevada or Texas, I would go work there if I knew it was the same type of job and it was going to be just cool and no bullshit. I would work at Amazon. I'm not going to work in New Jersey, man. I guess that's everything though. Nobody wants to hear about this, right? Some forge hire. I don't even know what this means. Maybe it was something in my head at that point from this dream, from this vision of the end of the world in a more comic book fashion. The other album, Baseball on the Radio, was about nuclear apocalypse. This one's just about cyclops and weird monsters emerging from, I don't know, the Mariana Trench or somewhere. They've been slumbering for generations, waiting for their chance to finally fuck up humanity. Yeah, maybe I'll get to that at some point. Write a story in a graphic novel if it's interesting enough. It probably won't be. But in terms of music, music is easier to deal with stuff like this, abstractions, and I work better in the abstract, where I don't need to have a clear and concise answer for everything. I don't get people who think like that. I need to know every lyric, hear every word, understand everything. Like, that's not why I listen to music. I want to listen to music as an experience, not to try to put myself in that situation of the singer or artist. I just want to hear the music and whether I instantly connect with it or not. But I think that's all for today. I kept it a little bit shorter than I usually do. It's about just over 2 hours, so that's pretty good. Um, yeah, hopefully you got some context of the music Ophelia by Oliver Sacks. Go look him up, check out his books, and yeah, he's pretty well known. He had a TEDx talk that was really good, and again, his involvement in the movie Awakenings and maybe other stuff too that I don't even know about, and brain chemistry and different regions of the brain. If you have a family member affected by diseases like that, try some music. I don't know. There were some anecdotes like that with people's elderly parents or whatever, and they were struggling to do simple household tasks, or they don't even remember their name. And like I think I mentioned earlier, that you can make everything like a song, and maybe it's easier to remember. There's examples like that. Like I still remember the Our Father prayer, or because it was sung so many times when I used to go to church. Songs stay in your head longer. Fairy tale songs or nursery rhymes. That's what I meant to say. Nursery rhymes. They just stay in your head. They'll pop into your head. You don't even realize it because they're somewhere in there. It's like, why do I remember the '93 Phillies team? Mariano, Duncan, Kruk, Stalker. They're easy to remember because they're actually on the Phillies broadcast team. Dave Hollins, Incaviglia, Mickey Morandini, Dalton, Terry Mulholland, right? And then there's a couple I forget, yeah. Well, what's his face? I was going to say Otis Nixon. No, Otis Nixon's on the Braves. Oh, did I say Dykstra? Yeah, of course, Dykstra. Eisenreich. Yeah, he was the guy I couldn't think of. Wes Chamberlain, Ricky Jordan. Yeah, a couple weeks ago I was into that, just watching old '93 Phillies and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm waiting to get a job. I said it before, like it shouldn't have taken this long to get a job, and I'm very motivated to just get out west. If I have to do a job that um, is not as attractive as I thought I would be doing as a 40-year-old. And if it gets me out west and it gets my plan in motion, then I'm cool with that. And supposedly Starbucks is cool with tattoos, so that should be fine. If I get a job at Starbucks or somewhere else. And yeah, that's where my head is. I don't know how helpful this has been to calm down my frustration level. I do look at this as a therapy session still, just to talk out some things in my head. But reading is kind of important to me right now. It's giving me something to take my mind off the bullshit. And even though those thoughts will sneak in when I'm reading, like I kind of just deal with it like I deal with it. A book like this is just hard to retain information. Whether I'm on like some Ritalin drug that gives me uber focus, I'd still have trouble with scientific jargon and stuff like that. So if you like books like that, you would love this book. And even for the casual music lover, music reader, or people interested in different mental delirium, is that a good word to use? Like dementia and Alzheimer's, and what are savants? How does their brain differ from everybody else? But it goes a lot deeper than what I'm trying to convey right now, because I'm uneducated on these topics. And yeah, so go check out that book. It's called Musicophilia, and it was a pretty good read through. It wasn't too frustrating or anything. But I'll stop here. The next talk I'm going to have might be in, I don't know, a few days from now. I still intend to go to the Red Cross this Saturday to donate platelets, and after that, maybe I'll do it on Sunday. And what is on the docket on Sunday, I believe. Sunday, yeah, I'm going to go through Oceans, just one of the songs again. This will be Evolution of the Song Part 9, Oceans song, Oceans Part 3. I have an ambient idea called Oceans. I think I mentioned it during the John Luther Adams talk, where every song would be kind of, you keep the time by like the ocean waves as a metronome. You could manipulate it, make it slower, make it faster. And that's how it would kind of go. Oceans Part 3, and it's kind of interesting. I'll get into Bon Iver and some ambient music that really inspired me to write this album. It's interesting. It's one of the most doable albums for myself. I can make it part ambient, part shoegaze or heavy distortion, and do it myself. The one problem I have when I think about performing these songs myself is doing harmonies, because I'm not very good at that. I would really have to practice the science of harmony singing, but that's for another talk. Why it's so hard to do that. I just think you have to be in a choir to experience what that sounds like. The energy of a choir is something you have to experience firsthand, and I've never been there to do anything like that. So that's the end of today's talk. Thanks for listening. This was Evolution of the Song, Part 8. Hopefully you took something away from this. I feel like I talked more about the book than the song, but so be it. I'm not angry about that. When I'm only speaking about one of my songs, it does go by pretty quickly, especially a song like Some Forge Higher, because it's very basic and doesn't really incorporate any tempo changes. It's an ending song just to end this crazy album. And this is really the only two things I'll be talking about in the future. Well, ideally, I'll be recording my music at some point, so I wouldn't really have this as a priority right now. The reason I do these talks is because it keeps me focused on my goals, that I want to make this a reality for the next 20 years of my life. It's going to happen it's inevitable. I just need to find a good place to start. And I don't feel like New Jersey is that place. It's just too much. I don't want to say trauma. It is a form of trauma. It's too much bullshit. I'll just keep it simple like that. And I've been attracted to the West Coast for a while. And I don't care where it is. It could be anywhere in the Southwest because I would eventually buy land somewhere along the Southwest. I looked into a lot of places last summer, and that's the plan to do all that. A shipping container, live off the land to some degree, and go at it like that. Just have the freedom to do it without bothering people. Because I can't move into an apartment and do what I want to do. I'm going to have to move to an apartment for the time being and adjust to that and save as much money as I can and just find a cheap way to live. But I'll find a way to do it. Even when I'm there, I'll have to go outside with an acoustic and try to record stuff like that or some other way. It's going to happen. I just need a starting point, really. So that's the talk for today. Hopefully I didn't whine too much, but these are just the thoughts in my head that I have to get out, and it's going to come back tomorrow again because this is my reality, kind of spiraling in a circle. When you don't have control over your life, this is just your reality. Other people seem to be controlling my script to some degree. That's why I'm just going to do something radical and just leave and find a different place to exist where I don't have to be a part of other people's bullshit. That's really what it comes down to. I think a lot of people can relate to that in different levels at different parts of their lives. So that's what I'm going for now. Just go balls out and get more and more confident as I go, just like working out every day. I try to do it every day until July 30th, July 31st, or until I get a job before then, hopefully. And that's just going to make this experience more doable, I think. But yeah, thanks for listening. I'll be back, I don't know, what did I say, Sunday, so in a couple of days. And yeah, that's all. Go USA.